It's 6:30 in the morning now. Time zone change, so I'm dead tired.
Time zone change. Why is it a time zone change?
In China, I was at, when it was 6:30 p.m. for you, it was 7:30 a.m. for me. Now in Thailand, it's 6:30 p.m. for you, 6:30 a.m. for me. Hour earlier.
That's overly complicated.
Yeah, it is. Just know I get less sleep.
You're listening to the Video Game Show, episode 232. Today with us we have Chad.
Morning.
We've got Keith.
Hello.
We've got Ivan.
I'm going to barf soon.
And this is Phil.
Are you not feeling well?
I am not feeling well.
Do you have like a cold or stomach flu or?
I don't know what I have. I've had a headache all day. And it led me to not want to eat anything all day, which I think in turn led me to having an upset stomach. So then I ate something, and I think that upset my stomach, which is ironic. But
it is rather ironic, actually.
If you go throw up, record yourself. It'll be good for the show.
Yeah. That'll make for a great show, I'm sure.
Take the MacBook in there.
Take the MacBook in there. Just don't puke on it or drop it in the toilet. I have been playing Civilization 5 for the past week, which is an absolute blast. Civilization, well, they apparently have made 4 others before this one, based on the name. But it's a turn-based strategy game that you basically pick one of the, a kingdom, a famous kingdom, like, you'd be Greece or America, different civilizations of the world, and you basically try to either win through diplomacy or like cultural achievements or just by killing everybody else. But I don't know how familiar all you guys are with the previous civilizations, but they've changed the whole layout on it in the sense that they made it so that you can't stack units. In all these games, you can always stack your units. So you'd build a bunch of warriors, and they'd all go into one stack, and that one stack would basically just march down the field, killing and maiming everything because nothing could stand up to the stack. Now you can only have one unit per tile, which really actually adds a lot into that. Into the strategy of the game, because you can't just have that one big unit and go march through towns. They've also added the fact that towns can now bombard enemy units, and they got barbarian units that spawn and pop up all over the place. So it's a lot of fun. Chris, myself, and even Wolf have been playing the holy hell out of that. But it's basically just, again, it's Civilization. I don't know how to describe Civilization any different than that. But I've been having an absolute blast with it because it's just the next Civilization. The graphics are really good. Gameplay's fun. It's just a fun game. We've been the multiplayer's cool because you can actually have different people on the same team instead of just having everyone being independent. You can actually have a 3 versus 3 versus 3 battle or etc. But it's we're very much enjoying it, and Chris and I have been playing that a lot of late.
So how would you rate this game compared to other RTSs that you've played, like Warcraft or...
It's not an RTS, it's a turn-based game.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. I like that. I don't like RTS games. I like to be able to pick what I'm going to be doing and just go with it. But, so you really can't compare it to Dawn of War or that because... that's obviously a real-time strategy game.
Okay. So how long does a turn typically take per person?
Well, they have a whole, happiness system in there. So the more cities you have, the less happy your population is. So while you can have a big sprawling city, a big sprawling empire, you generally end up with, 5 to 6 cities is really all you end up with in your game there. So... a typical turn takes, about 5 minutes, I'd say. They go pretty quick. It's not really anything crazy. So a whole game, though, takes a long time because you start at 4000 BC, and I think it ends at 20-something, 20-something. I've never actually made it to the end of the game, per se. We've either won through cultural victories or just military victories.
What does one person do while the others are taking their turn.
Everyone goes at the same time.
So you're not waiting around.
No, everyone goes at the same time. The only time you're waiting around is if you finish your turn real fast. If you finish your turn super fast, then you're going to be waiting around while the other guys wrap that up. Because because it's going to wait for everyone to go, and then the computer goes. But it's like I said, man, it's I don't know how else really to describe Civilization if you haven't played Civilization.
So would like one turn be like a certain period of time, like a year or 5 years or something like that?
It changes as you go, because when it starts out in the BC era, a turn is 20 years. Each turn is like 20 years. As time progresses, turns then become, instead of being 20 years, they're now 10 years, and then they become 5 years, and then it's actually each year is a turn kind of a thing. But the whole point is you're trying to, learn different technologies to build the different units. You can build world wonders. If you haven't tried it or you don't know Civilization, go get the demo because it's an absolute blast. And I know I'm not explaining it well, but the only way I can explain Civilization is if you played a Civilization game. It's just one of those games that, like, I don't know how to describe it short of saying, well, it's Civilization. But it's a lot of fun. I strongly recommend it to everyone to play. I don't know if you would like it, Ivan. You don't really like those kind of games, which is sad because they're fun.
I could probably dig this game because usually when I play games like Dawn of War, I like building everything in the tree before I actually go and attack things.
This would be right up your alley because you don't even have to fight anyone if you don't want to. You can do a whole cultural victory. Now, that's nowhere near as fun, but you could do a whole cultural victory if you wanted to. It all depends. I mean, the military victories are a lot harder in Civilization 5 than they were in the previous Civilization games because of the whole stacking thing. When you could stack your units like that, it made life a whole heck of a lot easier to have a military victory. Because the most you can attack people with is, what would it be, 8 people? Because you could have a hex. It's a hex-based map. So the most you could possibly attack with would be 8 people. And that's if there's not mountains or something like that that's in the way already. I know that's not a great description of it, but it's one of those games that try the demo. If you like real-time turn-based strategy games, this game's awesome. You'll like it. Go play it.
I will not hire you as my marketing manager for the next video game that I produce.
Don't, because, like I said, I know it's a bad description, but I don't know how to describe it.
You probably did a good enough job because those games are popular and people know them, so, except for Ivan, who doesn't like those kind of games.
Right, but since I've never played 1 through 4, I have no desire to play 5 anyway.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want to play 5 anyway. If you've played the Civilization games, you know the Civilization games. The main difference is that it's a hex-based map. You can't stack units, and what would else be the only other thing? Oh, they have like neutral cities that are around that you can either kill or become friends with and trade with, but they're not actual player characters. But it's Civilization. I mean, if you've played the Civilization games, you have. If you haven't played a Civilization game by now, I highly doubt you're going to pick it up at 5, like, okay, let's try this.
Yeah, but if you did start at 5, you're not going to miss out on anything, are you?
No, that's one thing about the Civilization games that I can say very safely is that each next version is better than the previous versions. There hasn't really been a Civilization game that has come out that it's like, oh, well, this isn't... I prefer 3 over 4. Each game has been better than its predecessor, which a lot of games you can't necessarily always say that with. But anyway, we also started our Blood Bowl League, and we have... There's a group of 8 of us playing, and so far we've got our first week through, except for one game which is finishing up tonight. And the way now, for those of you that don't know Blood Bowl is like a football rugby kind of game, except that you have the different races of the Warhammer world, and there's also like fighting and not just passing and throwing. So you can have a team that literally, beats the hell out of everybody. There's no one left on the field, and they can score that way. So we have myself, who's a Chaos team. That I'm the Minions of Oot. Chris is a Lizard Man team, who's the House of Slytherin. Paul is a Dark Elf team, Ride the Snake. Keaton is a human team. It's called Abner's Orphans. Cypher's an orc team, which is Orcs with a K. Our own Tom is a dwarf team, which are the Bellevue Dachshunds. And then Wolf is a human team. That's the Flatulent Pansies. And then Fred is a human team that is Scully's Raiders. So we got the first week underway, and what I'm going to do is after each week I'm going to be basically giving a little synopsis and a detail of my particular game, because it's my game and I'm going to give a detail of it. So we got it broken out into basically 2 divisions. So in the first division, there's Fred, Paul, Keaton, and Wolf are in the Division 1. And then myself, Chris, Cypher, and Tom are all in the second division. And then, the winners of those divisions are going to play in like the championship and move on from there. And as we started out with all fresh teams. So it's the first couple games are rough because no one has any skills. So the first game was my game, Minions of Oot versus Chris, which was the House of Slytherin. And the Minions of Oot were victorious in an action-packed 3-1 win filled with lots of blood and lots of scoring. The Minions of Oot received the ball first, and the game took a violent turn early in favor of the Minions of Oot when 2 Titans clashed in the middle of the field, sending the fans into a frenzy. One of Oot's Chaos Warriors, number 2, Daemok the Unbreakable, proved he was just that, laying low Slytherin's Mighty Saurus, number 3, Severus Snape. Snape was unable to return for the remainder of the game, giving Oot a 1-player advantage. The Minions' own Beastman, number 8, Muttley, showed a lot of promise as he was actually able to pick up the ball and manage to score the first touchdown. The ensuing kickoff to the House of Slytherin kept the momentum in favor of the Minions of Oot. Slytherin's skink, number 7, Lucius Malfoy, took the kick around the side of the team while the rest of the Lizards formed a wall, but the Minions were prepared. In a wild display of agility and athleticism that's rarely displayed by any follower of Oot, Beastman number 6, Hackflem Spittlemouth, was able to get into the end zone, and the other Beastman, number 11, Grotsnick de Bleths, was somehow able to pick up the ball in the middle of people, complete a pass, and able to score a touchdown as the half died out. Second half, Slytherin skink number 9, Hestia Caro, got the ball in a high kickoff, and in another clash of Titans, Slytherin Saurus number 1, Vincent Crabbe, wreaked havoc on Oot's number 1, Chaos Warrior, Stumpy Spine Twister. Stumpy was also unable to return to the game, evening out the match to 10 players apiece. Slytherin's number 10, Beatrix Lestrange, was able to follow its blocks down the field until there was a break in the Minions' defense. Literally, Beastman number 9, Shaggoth Spleen Ripper, tripped over himself, fell while trying to dodge away from an opposing player and broke his neck in the process, killing himself. Lestrange then turned on the Jets and was able to bust through the opposition and score, closing the gap to 2-1. The Minions of Oot received the next kickoff, and once again, number 8, Muttley, showed promise as an effective running back, was able to actually pick up the ball. The Minions were able to bash their way down the field, and Muttley was able to slip through the defenders and score a second touchdown. And speaking of bashing, Slytherin's number 1 Saurus, Vincent Crabbe, showed why he was the first player signed, and he dished out a second casualty of the day, and apparently it didn't like the fact that number 6, Spittlemouth, scored late in the first half, so he smote him with righteous fury, and Crabbe pounded him into the turf, taking him out for the rest of the game as well, much to the delight of the crowd. So, to wrap up that game, the Minions of Oot won 3-1. Number 2, Chaos Warrior, Daemok the Unbreakable, had 1 casualty. Number 6, Beastman Hackflem Spittlemouth, had a TD and a reception with 10 yards passing and 8 yards rushing. Number 8, Beastman Muttley, had 2 touchdowns, 78 yards rushing, and was voted MVP of the Minions. Number 11, Beastman Grotsnick de Bless, had 1 completion for 6 yards and 8 yards rushing. And number 9, Beastman Shaggoth Spleen Ripper, was killed in action by breaking his own neck. House of Slytherin. Number 1 source Vincent Crabbe had 2 casualties, 12 yards rushing, and was the MVP of Slytherin. Number 6 skink Draco Malfoy had 2 yards rushing. Number 7 skink Lucius Malfoy had 8 yards rushing. Number 9 skink Hestia Caro had 1 reception for 2 yards and 2 yards rushing. And number 10 skink Beatrix Lestrange with 1 touchdown and 40 yards rushing. Coach Oot of the Minions of Oot in the post-game press conference said he was pleased with the overall effort and was especially pleased with emerging star Muttley. He was disappointed with the lack of casualties, but admits that the lizards are often too stupid to realize that they're actually hurt. He also let know his disgust with Shaggoth's lack of faith by breaking his own neck. Turns out Shaggoth was supposed to be sacrificed during a post-game celebration. Oot assured the fans his soul will be suffering for 1,000 years as the Dark Gods slowly devour it. He hopes that Shaggoth's replacement shows more fortitude than his predecessor, or he too will find his soul offered up to the Dark Gods. Muttley was unavailable for comment as he was busy cannibalizing his choice of Spleen Ripper's organs, which ironically, he chose the spleen. Coach Palladino of House of Slytherin said he was extremely disappointed in his skink's inability to dodge away from other players. The whole purpose of the little lizards is to dodge between the opposition and score. If they can't do that, then they're useless. MVP Saurus Vincent Crabbe had the following to say: hiss, hiss, roar, hiss. The other game from that division was the Orc team Orcs with a K, which is Cypher's team, played to a draw with the Dwarves of the Bellevue Dachshunds, which is Tom. And the match between the Orcs and the Dwarves was a knock-em-down, drag-it-out slugfest. Both teams kept the ball and each other on the ground. With all the fighting that was happening in the midfield, the teams actually forgot to bother picking up the ball and scoring, and it ended as a 0-0 draw. It seemed the legendary hatred of Dwarves and Orcs held true, as they would rather beat each other senseless than play the actual game. Needless to say, the fans were thrilled with the blood sport, and a young goblin even got a trophy of an Orc helmet that even had the unfortunate Orc's head still in it. Coach MC Fragsnot was pleased with his team's performance. When asked if he was disappointed in the match, he said not at all. Dwarves live for 3 things: drinking, fighting, and drinking. And he was especially pleased with the Orcs champion Troll was rendered completely impotent, as he kept forgetting the play and kept getting himself knocked down. His team would rather kick an Orc while it's down than run away from a fight, even to score. Coach Cypher apparently didn't even realize the team was playing a match. He thought they were simply engaging in a pre-game battle ritual most Orcs partake in before a match. By the time he realized the match was underway, the game was already ending. Still, Coach Cypher kept the age-old adage of Orcdom to quote, "Orcs never lose. If we're dead, so it don't count. If we win, we've won. And if we fall back, we can always come back later. So it doesn't count as a loss." Then in the other division, the Dark Elf team Ride the Snake, which is Paul's team, defeated the Human's Own Abner's Orphans, which is Keaton's team. Coach Keaton of Abner's Orphan issued the following statement: Abner's Orphans put up a valiant effort, but were ultimately robbed of a win by the dirty, cheating bastards of Ride the Snake. The game ended 2-1 in favor of those thieving. But the Orphans aren't giving up. They'll be back next week to crush anyone foolish enough to take the loss as a sign of weakness. Coach Von Kruss of Ride the Snake was asked about the play of his assassin Bloodbane, but the question was never finished as Bloodbane stabbed the reporter in the back and ran off. And then the last game between Scully's Raiders and the Flatulent Pansies will be played later this evening. So that was week 1 so far of the Blood Bowl League.
Very nice. Well done, Keith, by the way.
So it'll be fun. We'll have a good time with it.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
Ivan's 10-man raid group in World of Warcraft has defeated all of the bosses. And now they're working on heroics.
So what do you mean you're working on heroics?
Every raid boss has a regular and a heroic mode. The heroic mode is harder and drops higher eye-level loot.
So now you're just trying to basically get all your fat loots.
Yes, we have finished killing every boss in all the raids, and now we're going to try and do the hard modes for all those bosses.
Oh, that works. Now, is the hard stuff actually really hard?
Yes. Usually it adds one or more of different things, like it'll add extra monsters during the fight, or the boss hits twice as hard, or causes twice as much damage, that kind of thing. Or there's different mechanics, like normally you stand there and you shoot the boss until it's dead, but in hard mode you stand there and shoot the boss, and the entire time there's raining fireballs coming down that constantly cause you to have to move around the room, that kind of stuff. So you either have to be able to do more damage in the same amount of time, or you have to be on your toes because there's other stuff going on while you're also trying to kill the boss.
So do you have to have like pretty sweet gear to even do the heroic ones like that?
Yes. First of all, there's 3 different raid dungeons. In any given raid dungeon, you have to have completed all of the bosses on regular mode in order to do heroic mode.
Oh, so you have to do everything. Because I thought that you just needed like a key or something.
No. No. That's the old school way of doing things. You used to have to do a quest or do a bunch of stuff to get a key to unlock heroic mode. Now the way they do it is you have to kill all of the bosses on regular mode before you can do them on heroic. So that's the first requirement. That's about the only requirement. And then secondly, yes, you have to have better gear in order to try hard modes. You don't have to, it's not a requirement, but if you don't, you're just gonna get spanked. So yeah, you have to have better gear as well. It's like the equivalent of the 5-man dungeons. You know, there's regular 5-man dungeons and heroic 5-man dungeons, and they're essentially the same thing. The bosses hit a little harder. They're a little different. Sometimes they have a different mechanic involved. It's the exact same thing with raid boss dungeons.
Well, rock on with your bad self.
Yep, I think we got enough here for a show. Anybody want to put any final closing words on the show?
I think I'm going to shit myself.
Sounds good.
Well, good luck with your of yourself. Let me know how that works for you. Actually, it should work fairly well. I mean, you should be adept at.
I am quite adept.
I'm a master.
Nice.